In a quaint suburban neighborhood, the peace was often disrupted by one particular resident, Karen, the self-appointed HOA enforcer. Known for her strict adherence to rules and her tendency to nitpick others, she took it upon herself to monitor every detail of her neighbors' lives. Sarah, a new resident, quickly became a target for Karen's scrutiny. It all started with Sarah's mailbox, which Karen deemed unsightly and not up to HOA standards. Despite it being perfectly legal and compliant, Karen frequently trespassed onto Sarah's property to inspect it, often leaving passive-aggressive notes. Part 2. The breaking point. After weeks of Karen's incessant meddling, Sarah reached her breaking point. She had tried talking to Karen, but her words fell on deaf ears. Instead of respecting her privacy, Karen only became more brazen, leaving more notes and even knocking on her door uninvited. One day, after finding another note that read, "Your mailbox is an eyesore. Fix it or face consequences," Sarah knew she had to take action. She wanted to teach Karen a lesson she wouldn't forget. Part 3. The master plan. As an avid gardener and hobbyist beekeeper, an idea sparked in Sarah's mind. What if she filled the mailbox with bees? It was a harmless way to send a message and ensure that Karen would think twice before trespassing again. Sarah carefully planned her approach. She set about preparing her mailbox for the surprise, ensuring that the bees would be safe and unharmed while still delivering the shock she intended for Karen. Part 4. The setup. After gathering her supplies, Sarah filled her mailbox with a small, secure hive. She made sure the bees were well fed and comfortable, then closed the mailbox, leaving it in place. She couldn't wait to see Karen's reaction. The following day, Sarah waited with bated breath. She observed from her window, ready to witness the fallout of her little prank. Part 5. The fateful encounter. Around midday, Karen appeared, strutting down the street with her usual air of entitlement. Sarah could see her approaching the mailbox, a smug grin on her face as she prepared to inspect it once more. As Karen opened the mailbox, a swarm of bees buzzed out, filling the air with a chaotic hum. Part 6. The Freakout. Karen's eyes widened in horror as the bees flew around her head. She shrieked and stumbled back, flailing her arms wildly in an attempt to swat them away. "What is happening?"
"Get them off me!"
she screamed, her voice a mix of disbelief and panic. Sarah could hardly contain her laughter as she watched Karen's frantic escape. Neighbors began to peek outside, drawn by the commotion. The sight of HOA Karen, usually so composed and controlling, reduced to a flailing mess, was priceless. Part 7. A lesson learned. Karen ran down the street. Sarah stepped outside, a smirk on her face. "Looks like you need to respect people's property, Karen," she called out, reveling in the moment. The neighbors, amused by the spectacle, began to gather and cheer Sarah on. The tension that had once permeated the neighborhood began to dissipate, replaced by shared laughter at Karen's expense. Part 8. The aftermath. After the incident, Karen retreated for a while. Her authority diminished. The neighborhood had witnessed her embarrassing defeat, and it sparked conversations about respect and boundaries. Sarah's bold move had not only provided her with a sense of relief, but also rallied the community around her. Neighbors who had previously been intimidated by Karen began to stand up for themselves, fostering a newfound sense of unity. Conclusion. A new era. In the weeks that followed, Karen tried to reassert her control, but the residents were no longer afraid. They had seen the power of standing up to entitlement, and Sarah's prank had ignited a change in the neighborhood culture. Sarah and her neighbors began organizing regular gatherings, strengthening their bonds, and ensuring that everyone's voice was heard. Karen, on the other hand, learned a valuable lesson about respect and boundaries. As for the mailbox, it remained a reminder of the day Karen learned that trespassing on others' property could have unexpected consequences, especially when bees were involved. Following the bee incident, the neighborhood atmosphere shifted dramatically. Residents who once feared Karen's judgment began to reclaim their space. Sarah, feeling empowered after her successful prank, decided to take charge and organize a neighborhood meeting to discuss how they could strengthen their community. She sent out invitations that encouraged everyone to come share their thoughts, ideas, and experiences. The response was overwhelming. Nearly every household in the neighborhood agreed to participate. Part 10. The neighborhood meeting on. The day of the meeting, Sarah transformed her backyard into a welcoming space. She set up chairs, prepared snacks, and created a warm environment where everyone felt comfortable sharing. As the meeting commenced, Sarah opened the floor to discussions. I think we can all agree that we want to live in a supportive community, where we respect one another's space and choices, she began. Residents shared their experiences with Karen's overreach, and the energy in the room shifted from fear to empowerment. They brainstormed ideas for a neighborhood watch program, ways to communicate effectively about shared rules, and how to support each other against the HOA's strict regulations. Part 11. A unified front inspired by the meeting. Sarah proposed creating a neighborhood association that would help residents collaborate on issues affecting them. If we work together, we can advocate for ourselves and ensure that our voices are heard, she suggested. The idea was met with enthusiasm. They decided to elect a small committee to represent the neighborhood, focusing on building a positive rapport with the HOA while ensuring that residents' rights were respected. As the weeks progressed, the committee began to engage in constructive dialogues with the HOA, advocating for fair regulations and reminding them that the community was made up of diverse families with varying needs. Part 12. Karen strikes back. Seeing the neighborhood unite, Karen was not pleased. She attempted to regain control by spreading rumors and trying to intimidate residents once more. However, this time her tactics fell flat. The community stood together, refusing to be swayed by her manipulative behavior. One evening, as Karen approached Sarah's house, she attempted to confront her. "You think this makes you the queen of the neighborhood?" she sneered. Sarah, confident and unyielding, replied, "No, Karen. It makes us all equal. We're done letting you dictate how we live." Part 13. The HOA meeting. The neighborhood association decided to attend the next HOA meeting as a united front. Dressed in matching t-shirts displaying their neighborhood name, they arrived to make their voices heard. Sarah took the lead, addressing the board with clarity and determination. "We are here to discuss the importance of community and the need for fair regulations that consider every resident's perspective," she stated, outlining their concerns and suggestions. The HOA board members were taken aback by the collective energy and unity of the residents. They listened intently as Sarah and her neighbors presented their case, emphasizing the need for a more inclusive approach to governance. Part 14. A new understanding. After lengthy discussions, the HOA agreed to revise some of their regulations and work more closely with the neighborhood association. They recognized that a cooperative approach would foster a healthier community environment. Karen, witnessing the shift in power dynamics, found herself sidelined as the neighborhood banded together. The support from her neighbors empowered Sarah and others to continue standing up for their rights while fostering a respectful dialogue with the HOA. Part 15. A celebration of unity. 2. Celebrate their successes. Sarah and the neighborhood association organized a block party. They wanted to honor the spirit of community and show that collaboration could yield positive change. On the day of the party, laughter, music, and delicious food filled the streets. Residents shared stories, played games, and even created a neighborhood wall of positivity, where everyone could write uplifting messages and appreciation for one another. Conclusion. The legacy of the bees. As the sun set on the block party, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since the bee incident. What was once a neighborhood divided by fear and entitlement had transformed into a vibrant community united by respect and support. Karen, although still present, no longer held the same power. The residents had learned to stand up for themselves, and the bees had become a humorous symbol of their resilience and determination. The story of the mailbox and the bees became a cherished anecdote that residents shared, reminding everyone of the importance of community, accountability, and the power of standing together against entitlement. As for Sarah, she felt fulfilled knowing that her bold move had sparked a positive change that would last for years to come. I've always been the type of person who minds my own business. I mow my lawn, pay my HOA fees, and keep my property clean. That's it. I don't go around starting drama, but somehow, drama always finds me, especially when your neighbor happens to be Karen. If you've ever lived in a neighborhood with an HOA, you probably already know there's always that one person who acts like they're running a dictatorship. Ours was Karen. Short blonde hair, sunglasses even on cloudy days, and a clipboard she carried around like it was the holy book of HOA rules. She lived across the street from me, and for the most part I tried to stay polite, until she started her Mailbox campaign. The mailbox problem, it started innocently enough. One afternoon, I came home from work to find Karen standing next to my mailbox, phone in hand, snapping pictures. "Hey, Karen," I said, walking up. "Everything okay?" She jumped a little, pretending to be surprised. "Oh, hi, neighbor. Just taking some photos for the HOA records. For what exactly?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness, "your mailbox is, about 2 inches taller than regulation height. And technically it's supposed to be painted matte black, not glossy. So I'll be filing a report." I looked at the mailbox. It was fine. Clean, straight, freshly painted, no issues at all. "Karen," I said, "you've got to be kidding me. You're taking pictures because it's too shiny?" "Rules are rules," she said with a smile. "We can't have chaos." I took a deep breath. "Got it. I'll handle it." She walked away like she'd just saved the neighborhood from collapse. Strike 2. The snooping. A few days later, I noticed something strange on my security camera. Karen had walked onto my property again, in broad daylight, and opened my mailbox. Now that's a federal offense. I replayed the footage 3 times to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Nope. There she was, pulling my mailbox open, peeking inside, and closing it again. The next morning, I caught her red-handed. "Karen!" I called out from my porch. "What are you doing?" She froze. "Oh, I was just checking for misdelivered mail. You know how the postal service can be." I walked down the driveway. "You can't open other people's mailboxes. That's illegal," she scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. I'm part of the HOA. We're allowed to inspect for compliance." I laughed out loud. "The HOA can't open my mail, Karen. That's a federal crime. You could actually go to jail for that." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. No one's going to arrest me for making sure your box isn't full of junk." I told her to stay off my property and walked away, but I could tell from the smug look on her face that she didn't take me seriously. The escalation a week later, I noticed my mail was missing. Important letters from my insurance company, gone. A package I'd been expecting, vanished. When I asked the mail carrier, he said, "Actually, someone filed a complaint saying your mailbox was unsafe to deliver to. Said there were structural issues." Guess who filed it? Karen. That's when I decided. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to just call the cops, yet. I wanted her to feel the consequences first. The plan around that time, my friend Jake, who's a local beekeeper, stopped by with some honey jars. I told him the whole story, and we both laughed when he joked, "You should fill her mailbox with bees." That's when the idea hit me like lightning. I wouldn't hurt anyone, of course, but I would use a little harmless bee trick to teach her a lesson about boundaries. Jake explained that when bees are moved into a dark space temporarily, like a box, they stay calm, as long as you don't shake it. So, if someone were to, say, open a mailbox full of them, they'd come flying out in confusion but wouldn't sting unless provoked. Perfect. The setup. That weekend, I waited until Saturday night when Karen was out at her book club, or whatever cult she attended. Jake brought over a small transport box with about 24 harmless honeybees. Calm, sleepy, and ready for relocation. We gently placed the open box inside my mailbox, set a small gap for air, and left it there overnight. The plan was simple. The next morning, I'd move them back out before the mailman came. But if Karen decided to snoop early, well, nature would handle it. The morning surprise. At 7:15 a.m. sharp, my security camera pinged with motion. There she was, Karen, strutting across the street in her pink robe, coffee mug in hand, walking straight to my mailbox. I watched live from my phone, holding back laughter. She looked around, made sure no one was watching, and opened the mailbox. Instantly, a cloud of bees burst out. Karen shrieked so loud it echoed down the street. She dropped her coffee, flailing her arms like a cartoon character, running in circles while the bees buzzed around her. "Get them off me! Help! Help!" she screamed, sprinting toward her house. I stepped outside, pretending to be confused. "Karen, everything okay?" She spun around, hair a mess, one slipper missing. "There are bees in your mailbox! They attacked me!" I tried my best not to laugh. "Bees in my mailbox? That's odd. Maybe you shouldn't be opening other people's mailboxes, huh?" She glared at me, eyes wide. You did this on purpose." "Karen," I said calmly, "why were you in my mailbox again?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She had no answer. At that exact moment, our mail carrier pulled up, watching the scene unfold. "Ma'am," he said, "you can't be in his mailbox." "That's a serious offense," Karen stammered. I was just..." He shook his head. "I'm reporting this." The fallout later that afternoon, a police cruiser stopped by. The officer asked me a few questions, watched the camera footage, and then knocked on Karen's door. I could hear her yelling from across the street. "Bees! There were bees!" I could have died. The officer's tone was calm. "Ma'am, the footage shows you trespassing and opening someone else's mailbox. You're lucky all you got were a few bees." In the end, Karen got an official warning for mail tampering and trespassing, and the HOA president forced her to step back from compliance duties. She tried to play the victim, of course. She told everyone I was unhinged and used wildlife as a weapon, but nobody bought it. The footage went around the neighborhood. Everyone saw her snooping and screaming. For weeks after, people couldn't stop laughing. One neighbor even said, "Hey, if you ever need pest control, just call the beekeeper again." Sweet buzzing justice. After that day, Karen never came near my property again. She'd glare from her window sometimes, but that was it. My mail deliveries went back to normal, and I even repainted my mailbox extra glossy black just to spite her. Jake still jokes about it whenever he drops by. "So," he says, "need a refill for your bee defense system?" We both laugh. To this day, that footage of her running down the street with bees buzzing around her is the most satisfying thing I've ever witnessed. Moral of the story: if you keep sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, you might just get stung. When a hard-working veteran's meticulously maintained garden is destroyed by his HOA nemesis's entitled son during a drunken joyride, the ensuing battle for justice against the affluent, dismissive family escalates into a neighborhood-wide war that can only be settled by the law. Characters: the protagonist, Alex Mack. McMillan, a recently retired marine mechanic, early 40s. He values order, precision, and respect. His garden is his sanctuary and a testament to his focus and patience. He bought his house with his life savings and takes great pride in maintaining it perfectly, often making him a target for the HOA busybodies. The antagonist: Brenda, HOA Karen. Sterling, early 50s, the self-appointed tyrant of the Stone Creek Estates HOA board. Her life revolves around power, petty rules, and maintaining the community's prestige. She views Mac as an outsider who needs to be kept in line. The entitled son, Kyle Sterling, early 20s. Spoiled, narcissistic, and deeply convinced that his family's wealth and status make him untouchable. He views manual labor, rules, and consequences as things for other people. The ally, Sarah Chen. A sharp, young paralegal who lives 2 streets over. She's quiet, observant, and has her own simmering resentment toward Brenda Sterling's overreach. She becomes Mac's informal legal advisor. The inciting incident: Mac is awakened at 2 a.m. by a loud crunch and the sound of an engine revving. He looks out his window to see a large black luxury SUV, Kyle Sterling's car, stuck deep in his front yard. The car has flattened his prize-winning rose bushes, shredded his perfectly manicured Bermuda sod, and taken out a decorative stone pillar. Kyle, smelling of alcohol and radiating arrogance, stumbles out. Rising action: the immediate confrontation. Kyle attempts to offer Mac $50 to forget about it. When Mac calls the police to report the accident and DUI, Kyle panics and speeds off, leaving deep tire ruts in the process. Brenda's first attack. Brenda arrives the next morning not to apologize, but to deliver a notice of violation to Mac for unsightly yard damage that lowers property values. She demands Mac fix his yard immediately and threatens a daily fine, refusing to acknowledge her son's fault. The insurance scheme. Kyle's father, David Sterling, attempts to file an insurance claim, claiming Mac's sprinkler system caused Kyle to lose control and that the damage was minimal. Mac provides dashcam footage from a neighbor's car that clearly shows Kyle speeding and driving aggressively. The neighborhood rallies. Sarah, the paralegal, advises Mac to document everything and send a cease and desist letter. Neighbors, tired of Brenda's dictatorship, begin to provide Mac with their own ring camera footage, showing Kyle doing donuts in other parts of the neighborhood leading up to the crash.